Dr. Jazz.
You're the second French horn player, so after Tom Warner. So I'm slowly getting the all the best together.
That's a tough act to follow.
Yeah. No, but come on. I've counted today the albums I have you on, and I think it's over 40. And you know actually on how many albums you've been or how many you've done?
I have no idea.
Okay. Do
you know?
No, I don't know. I just like I was curious today because I went through my albums and I was like, man, you did so much, and it's incredible, like the amount of work. So
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really fun, and what's really kind of interesting to me is it's not really over, because just a couple days ago I did a track for a guy. He goes by the name of Residente. He's from Puerto Rico, and he raps. And so
wow.
me and two other guys, we recorded a track for him that's based on a dream that he had, and it was so different and so creative and so fun. And we did it at Electric Lady Studios.
Oh wow. Nice.
Downtown, which I hadn't been there in a really long time, many years, but it's one of the first studios I ever worked at back in the 70s. Yeah. So I guess it's I'm still alive and kicking after many years.
Yeah, it's incredible. You know, I've talked to Randy Brecker a couple of months ago, and he's also one of those guys. He's probably on 500 records, and I think you're getting there almost, or even maybe there already. But
do you know about the All Music Guide?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. If you go there,
man. Oh yeah, I'll open the book. I have like all editions actually. Yeah.
You can find a lot of stuff there, but you have to be careful because my name is very common, and they make mistakes.
Okay.
So
okay.
There's a guy. There was a bass trombone player who worked at the Metropolitan Opera many years ago. He's no longer with us, but a lot of his stuff was on my stuff. And there's also out in California a guy with the same name who plays woodwinds. He's a woodwind doubler, so he's on a lot of stuff. So yeah. You have to kind of pick and choose.
You kind of see the musicians you worked with, and but. I wanted to ask you, John, like when you started, first of all, to pick French horn, that's, I know you and Tom and, Vincent Chansey and of course, Julius Watkins, I guess, and many others were like, what made you decide to enter the world of French horn, especially the world of French horn in improvised music? What was the trigger?
Let me see if I can. To me, it seems very complicated to give you the answer, but I'm going to try to simplify it.
Okay.
And the thing was, before I decided that the French horn was going to be my instrument, I had already been very, very interested in jazz, and I also played a little piano and guitar and bass, and so. I was more interested in jazz than any other kind of music. I played rock and blues and so on. But then I guess it would, you could say it was fate that made it happen. I wound up in a military band playing the French horn. So because it was in my hands and in my face every day, I grew to feel like, okay, this is it. This is my voice. And when I finished with the military, I said, well, I better try to get some work playing in an orchestra or playing chamber music or whatever. And I tried that, and it really didn't work. I mean, I was able to do it, and I'm still able to do it, although I'm not the best. I'm not even one of the best at playing horn in the classical field. There's so many really, really great horn players in the world, but I just felt that it really wasn't me, and I just felt I was a phony. I was trying to fool everybody into thinking that I could do that, or that I belonged there. So at a certain point, I just said, I'm not going to do that at all. I'm just going to completely not do that and only play jazz. I guess I didn't simplify it that much, did I? I'm sorry.
No. But what was the trigger for jazz? I mean, to which albums or artists? I mean, I guess, we're talking about early 60s or before.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many. When I think back to those times, there are so many influences, but I think in the beginning it was bebop. It was Dizzy and Bird. I think that's what really got me started. And later it was Coltrane. When I started listening to Coltrane, I was just like blown away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When A Love Supreme came out, I'd be up in the middle of the night playing the record over and over, trying to transcribe stuff and to see if I could play it on the horn.
Wow.
Which is pretty much impossible, but you can do some stuff.
Yeah, that's an undertaking. I mean, but back in the 60s, there was only basically Julius Watkins, right? Like playing more improvised stuff. I mean,
but there was also Willie Ruff, and there was also David Amram.
Oh yeah. And
you could say there was Don Elliott, but he didn't really play the French horn. He played the mellophone.
Oh yeah.
That was, closely related. And yeah, that's mainly it. I mean, Julius was really the cat. He played on so many records and so many with so many of the greats of jazz. Sonny Rollins, Monk.
Everyone, yeah.
Uh-oh, you're frozen.
I'm good. I hear you. I hear you well.
An internet hiccup.
Yeah, but it's cool. I hear you well.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also read that, you mentioned Coltrane, and later you studied composition and improvisation, and your teachers or mentors were some of the greats. I mean, how did that happen? George Russell and Ram Blake and Yaki Byard and all these amazing. How was that experience like for you?
I was just really, really lucky. And Gunther Schuller.
Oh yeah.
Every time I get to mention his name, I want to thank him. I'm so grateful to him for what he allowed me to do, because he was also part of that scene. Although he wasn't really an improviser on the horn, he was involved in a lot of that stuff. Birth of the Cool, Gil Evans, Miles, and so on. So what happened was, after the military, I went to school in Boston at the New England Conservatory. And again, it was just luck. It was luck for me that Gunther Schuller was the president of the school at that time. And so he allowed me to do a lot of stuff that, most schools, most presidents of school wouldn't. They said, no. No, you can't do that. You can't play the French horn in the big band. That's crazy. So, but he let me pretty much do whatever I wanted. So George Russell was, and I'm thanking him every time I sit down to compose. I thank George for giving me the tools that I needed, because up until then I hadn't really done any writing at all, and he's the main person I have to thank for that. Jackie Byard enabled me to do a lot of stuff that I couldn't have done otherwise too. Like they had two big bands in the school, and I wasn't allowed to play in the super big band. I won't mention any names. It's all water under the bridge. But Jackie allowed me to play in his big band, and he allowed me to do some arranging for the band too, which he didn't need to do because he had plenty of arrangements himself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how those things happened. And Ram Blake also, it just gave me some opportunities to play.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what I was doing at that time. I really didn't know anything. I just knew what I wanted to do. So there's been a lot of luck.
Yeah, I mean, that's
all
important,
along
right?
the way, just a lot of luck.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
come on.
sure.
You had the knowledge also, you know, and the voice and but you mentioned Gil Evans, and I wanted to ask you about Gil, and you know, you seem to have, especially in the 70s or late 70s, early 80s, this strong connection with Gil. And I have you in 2 records also with Gil, of course. And like, how did this connection with Gil happen? And that was like a dream band, like with Howard Johnson and Dave Sanborn and I think Billy Harper and like many others. Like, how did the story with Gil begin?
That's another thing having to do with luck. Okay. And no, it's really, and I'm not trying to be modest. It's just true. Before I moved to New York, I did a recording with George Russell that's called Living Time. It's with George's big band and Bill Evans's trio. It's pretty hard to find, but I think you can find it on YouTube.
Okay.
Living Time. So when I was in New York doing that session, I hung with George a little bit, and he took me over to Gil's house and introduced me to Gil. Oh. So, that was just a really amazing time. I met Elvin Jones. George and I went to Slugs, and I met Elvin there, and I don't know, lots of other people, and everyone in that big band was, oh my God, it was really amazing. It's a big band, so I won't roll off all the names, but if you go to YouTube, you'll see. Okay, so anyway, I'm just gonna keep telling you about the luck aspect. So after that, I didn't move to Boston right away, but when I went back to Boston, and then when it came time to move to New York, I was in New York doing some gigs, and I didn't have an apartment yet, and I was staying with a friend, and Gil Evans called me one night. And I don't even know how he found the number of my friend where I was staying. And I couldn't believe that Gil was calling me, even though I had met him, you know. And so he said, "Is this John?" And I said, "Yeah, this is Gil Evans." I said, "Yeah, right. Who is?"
It's one of those calls.
I thought it was a joke. And he said, "Well, this is Gil Evans. And would you like to play with us at the Vanguard Monday night?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, you know, what kind of luck is that? That was amazing. So I started playing with Gil right away before I even had a place to live. So, yeah, lots of luck.
How was it like for you when you went from Boston to New York? I mean, I know you grew up in Brooklyn, right?
No, I was born in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Okay.
Huh?
No. Yeah, didn't know. Yeah.
I was born there, but I grew up in upstate New York. And,
okay.
I've been trying to forget ever since. No. So anyway, you were asking about Gil, and let me just say, the playing in Gil's band at that time was just a really, really amazing experience, because it was how I wanted to play. I mean, I enjoyed playing in groups, small groups and big groups, where everything was pretty structured and you just play tunes with changes, and somebody would count it off, and then would be some solos, and there'd be a shout chorus and like that. But in Gil's band, although it was I guess about 12 pieces, or I guess the size would vary from time to time, but it wasn't structured like that. It was all very, very much like a big band operating like a small band. And Gil would almost never call a tune or count off a tune. Everybody would just play. Oh. And it was okay. It was a spiritual experience, and I miss it a lot.
Yeah. Did you ever talk with Gil about composing and arranging, like during tours, or like did you ask him like how he approached things, like? Or... Yes,
of course. But every time I think about that, I wish I had talked to him more.
Everyone says that, yeah. Like when they played with such people, yeah.
There's a famous story about that I don't really know, but I remember hearing it just about the theme of, yeah, I learned so much from this guy, but I could have learned 100 times more. But yeah, I learned a few like little specific things about arranging from Gil, but it wasn't, it just wasn't about that. It was more about, okay, for instance, in one of the interviews that he did around that time, someone asked him, what do you look for in music? And he said, I look for the living spirit in music. And that touched my heart, because, and it still does. And that's what I still look for.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's true. I mean, I always got the idea when I listened to whatever he did, he wrote for the musicians also. He had the sound in mind, and you know, the arrangements, like either it was Hendrix or whatever, or Mingus's tunes or whatever he arranged that you guys played. It was always like, okay, you know, push the people who were in the band actually out, kind of that they were featured and their sounds and voices and personalities. That's the idea I get. I mean, you know.
Yeah. I'll tell you a couple of really specific things.
Oh, please.
During the 80s, when we were playing at Sweet Basil, Gil did an arrangement called Bud and Bird. Okay, I can't sing it, but anyway, it's just beautifully written. And I hadn't been playing with the band for a while, and then I rejoined, and so he didn't have a French horn part. And I said, Gil, what do you want me to do on this tune? And he thought for a couple of minutes, and he goes, play the melody an octave lower, really softly.
Oh, wow.
And it was the perfect thing. It was the perfect thing to make the, I don't know, it just added a little weight to the sound, but it didn't get in the way of anything else. So I don't know. I think later he did actually write a horn part for that. And another thing that I liked, thing that I like to tell about Gil was when we went to Japan in 1976.
Oh, wow.
At that time, I was like really still pushing for this, trying to learn tenor, to play the horn like a tenor sax, which is really kind of dumb. But anyway, that's what I was trying to do at that time. And so I guess I was just always trying to play a lot of notes, trying to play real fast and so on and so on. So we're getting ready to play one of our concerts. And before we go on stage, Gil kind of took me aside and he said, John, when we play such and such tune tonight, take the first solo, but play some long notes. Because
yeah,
that's what the French horn does really well.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you can't play some fast notes, but if you never play any long notes, you're missing out on really,
yeah.
I think, experiencing the sound of the instrument.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What
Talk to Tom about that.
Sorry?
I need to talk to Tom about that sometime, because his fingers are flying. He's playing a lot of notes.
Yeah. Did you guys ever play together?
Oh, sure.
Like in small group settings also, or?
We tried when he was still living in New York. We tried to put together a quartet, and we had a name for it, which I don't remember now. With Vincent, Tom, myself, and Arkady Shilkoper.
Oh, wow, man.
So we met, we talked about it, and it never really got off the ground. But we did a few gigs. We did one particularly at the Knitting Factory in New York.
Interesting. Yeah, it would be cool to hear you guys in the smaller settings. I think it could be burning, like with the rhythm section, you know, like it's quite different. Yeah. Otherwise, with Gil, was this also your first time when you went like touring, like to Europe? I know you have that album Live at the Royal Festival Hall, obviously in London, and
that was my first really being on the road experience, going to Japan in '76 and Southeast Asia.
How was that like for you?
Well, kind of a shock, but yeah, it was great. It was really great
being on the road. It's like every dream, like when you're a teenager or when you start, like, okay,
Yeah.
being on the road. And
You sort of can't believe it's happening. That's, it's like that when I met Dizzy Gillespie. It wasn't even a musical thing, really. It just happened to be that Dizzy was of the Baha'i faith, and I am also. And so, and when I was still in Boston, there was some gathering of Baha'is, and Dizzy was going to go. So I was designated to go pick him up at his hotel. And so I did, but I was just so in awe of this man because I'd been listening to his records for years. And just to meet him in the flesh was kind of overwhelming,
What did you ask him?
I don't remember.
It's just like yeah.
I really don't remember. I probably nothing much. I probably was like speechless. And he came, but then I don't know if it was that time or another time. I think it must have been that time because I had a little jazz group and we played for some event, and Dizzy came and sat in on piano.
Wow, interesting.
So that was kind of a thrill. I wish I had a recording of that.
Yeah, I love those. Like when I talk to people and they have many tapes of gigs they recorded. I think I talked with Richie Byrek the other day, and he was like, "Yeah, I have a recording of this and this and this." I was like, "Man, we need this out." Like with I don't know, Abercrombie or whoever.
Yeah, I used to record a lot of things like that, but the quality probably isn't very good.
Yeah, but still, to archive it, to digitalize it, and that would be so beautiful to hear.
Yeah. It gives me an idea. I should work on that.
Yeah, come on.
I actually have a lot of stuff that's on DAT tape, so it's
man. Yeah, it's like Mike Knock also. You know Mike, the piano player. We talked, and he said like, he told me all the records he did, and still he hasn't digitalized and haven't come out. And it's like, with Scofield, with Abercrombie, with those guys, like, I was like, man, come on, the world is waiting.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we fill up the music, I think, But otherwise, John, I wanted to ask you, you said you started writing kind of, George Russell was really important. And I wanted to ask you, how did Song of Light happen? I listened to it like these days a little, to your music to get in the spirit of talking to you. And the compositions are just amazing already. Song of Light, I think it's like a 9/8 or something like that structure. Or
it is. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's a 9/8, and then it goes into 4/4.
Yeah, and it's Victor and Ron McClure and Michael. They're just burning in the beginning already, like the first 8 bars or something like that. But how did you get that group together, and how did you decide to become a band leader in that time, and how did that happen?
We had, all of us had played together and live, doing some little gigs all around New York, and I wanted to get some of those tunes recorded, and I didn't have any kind of a deal with any company or anything like that, and I wanted to do it completely self-produced. Okay, and it probably seems kind of dumb now, because when I listen to it, there are certain things that I go, oh man, I wish I hadn't done it that way, or I wish I had done this. But that's inevitable. You're always going to think that. And for some reason, it was important to me not to have anyone else involved in the production, because I just wanted to make all the decisions, whatever happens. Just let the chips fall where they may. Okay, so there's some stuff that I still listen to and I go, oh, that's nice. And then some others are like, oh, ouch, that's wrong. So anyway, that was an important element of it, was the fact that I just made all the decisions. And even Mike Mantler, who was the engineer, we were, kind of colleagues and everything, playing in Carla Bley's band. And Mike would start to make a suggestion. John, don't you think? And I'd be, no, I don't know. I don't want to hear anyone's ideas, even if they're right, even if they are better than my ideas. At that time, I didn't want to hear them.
Yeah.
So. for better or for worse.
No, I love it. I mean, it's a beautiful record, and I mean, especially the tunes, the compositions are amazing. And like, how did you compose those? Through what time? And like, especially now, even now, if you said you're composing, and what's your process there? Like, how do you start? How did you?
Oh, different ways, all different ways. I mean, sometimes I will compose something completely in my head and write it down on a napkin or a piece of paper. I've done that on the plane. And sometimes I'll sit at the piano, and sometimes everything will just flow out of me. And sometimes you have to drag it out piece by piece by piece. So it's always kind of different. But I will say this, that sometimes I will use a text or words or a prayer or something like that to give me an idea for a melody. Because writing a melody for me is the most difficult thing there is in composition.
Yep.
And sometimes I'll start with the rhythm. Like on that record, the second cut introduction is multi-meter. Like it starts in 4/4 and then it goes through a lot of other different meters. Now Gil really liked that. And I wrote an arrangement for Gil's band, and we used to play that quite a bit.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Boy, if I could find a recording of that, I would be so happy. But or even find the arrangement. I can't even find the arrangement.
Oh, man.
And also, Gil at one point said that he wanted to write an ensemble chorus for that. And I should have pestered him and nagged him until he did it, but I didn't. So that's another, you know, we all make a lot of errors of omission like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you just took one road there. That was it. You know?
Yeah. So, I guess that answers your question.
Yeah, but you mentioned, you know, the odd meters kind of. Where did this come from in that era for you? Like, you know, there was the fusion world, of course, but what you wrote doesn't resemble, you know, whatever was happening in the fusion world. It's basically modern jazz. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In school, when I was still in school, we played the Rite of Spring. In fact, I think it's recorded. I think we recorded it. And I was actually playing principal horn in the orchestra then. So I just loved it so much. It was so fun to play these different rhythms that idea just kind of stuck with me. So I think that tune introduction was maybe the first or second tune that I ever wrote.
Oh, wow.
So,
interesting.
And it must have been around the same time or pretty soon after we had done Rite of Spring, because that idea was just still with me, you know? Yeah.
No, it makes, because it's, you know, I love the idea of odd meters if they move in a natural way. And if I listen to your music, it's not forced, which kind of Stravinsky is also like, not really. If it's a necessity to go like into a 3/4 bar or a 5/4 bar there, it's because the melody leads, that's the way it goes, right? I mean,
right. You just follow it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Otherwise, I wanted to ask you, I mean, here, you know, you said you did Song of Light on your own and you wanted the entire control, but then 1 year later you did Faces. Which, you know, completely being under control of one other person, Manfred, who's like, you know, obsessed, needs 120% control of what he does. And how did this story with Faces and Manfred begin, like this connection?
We met when I was on tour with Carla Bley's band, and he liked the sound that I was making on the horn. That's basically what started it. And so we had a kind of a difference of opinion about how that record was going to be, because I wanted to swing, to burn, you know, to have a rhythm section, and of course I probably would have liked to play a lot of my own tunes, but but he had a different concept, which, if I remember, he was always mentioning Alan Hovhaness. And he's like, oh, do you know this piece by Hovhaness? Do you know this piece? You know that piece? And if I was really smart, I would have listened to him and said, oh, yeah, let's do that, or let's do something like that, and just forget about what I wanted to do. Because I had already made my record that I got to do exactly. But anyway, it came out.
I mean, how was it? You know, you have Jon Christensen there on drums. How was it like to play with Jon? I mean, he's one of the...
He's fabulous. Yeah.
Greats, underrated greats, I mean, in a way. But...
He's fabulous. I would have, I would have wanted to maybe have a bass player in addition to the vibes and yeah. But anyway, it came out really well.
Yeah, come on, you know, it's to be on an ECM, part of the ECM catalog, that's still a big thing, I think. And it's still a beautiful record, you know, you put it on, it's like, man, beautiful stuff. Otherwise, I wanted to ask you, like, you know, how did you decide for the groups that you did in the past? You know, I listened to Faces, I listened to Song of Light, and let's say Il Suono, which has a completely different, you know, people like Anthony Jackson, let's say, or Jerome Harris, like different vibes. Like, how did you decide where to go in your career as a leader? Or even now, what are your plans? Multiple questions for the future. Are you planning to do something new as a band leader also?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a really hard question. Actually, I didn't hear everything you said because we had a little hiccup in the internet again, and I didn't hear the whole question. I didn't hear the beginning of it.
Oh yeah, no, I wanted to ask you. You know, I listen to your records these days, and your records are going as a band leader. You know, so many different facets. Like, you know, like Song of Light. Then you have the Faces. Then I listened to Il Suono with you know, completely different lineup of people. And of course, the music is completely different. Like, how did you decide in your career where to go, or at a certain moment who to choose and what to do as a band leader?
That's hard. That's hard to answer. That's hard to answer. But let's see. I don't know. I think around that time, what was that? 97, I think. That Il Suono. 97. Because I was playing with those cats and doing, I don't know, funk was more like in my ears, in my head at that time, and so I don't know, Mustang Sally, and that was all stuff that I grew up on too. You know, in high school and junior high, I was listening to a lot of R&B and rock and Chuck Berry and Elvis and all that, and say, hey, why not do that on the horn, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So that was fun, and I would do that again. But then the next record that I did was inspired by David Soldier, the violinist, because he heard something, and I'm not remembering exactly the timeline, the sequence, but he heard something that I had written for a no-net. And he liked it, and he said, do you have any other stuff like that? And I thought, I don't know, let me go look. And sure enough, I found out that I did. So then we put that no net together and did that. And I would do more of that. I think I would like to do more of that, because that group has the ability to play some straight ahead jazz, and also to play some chamber music like stuff, and you know, to go in a lot of different directions. Yeah,
that's important.
But I can't really answer your question because I don't know where I'm going to go next.
But you're still considering like doing stuff as a band leader, or are you still?
Let's say I'm not ruling it out.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay.
But I will admit that I started playing electric bass again after I didn't touch it for many, many years. And I'm playing with a little trio that where I play bass and I sing a little bit too.
Wow.
I'm just a back. So I'm not very good at it, but I'm doing that a little bit. But I'm not ruling out doing stuff as a band leader either.
Yeah, yeah.
Mostly when I'm in New York now, the most, I guess what you call high profile thing is playing with the Mingus Orchestra, which I'm doing today. So it's very, very challenging and a lot of fun. I love it.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, John, you mentioned electric bass. You know, I played like for 3-4 years with Paul McCartney. We toured a lot in Europe, and I think Paul was part of that word of mouth band as well. I don't know if at the same time as you, but like, how was it to play with Jaco for you, speaking of electric bass and your experience in that group?
Well, I don't know what to say about that. It was great. It was really amazing and wonderful. Jaco, I don't know if he gets a lot of credit as an arranger, but his arrangements are so well done. I mean, how does a guy know what to write for the French horn so well? You know, I think he really was brilliant. And yeah, he's missed. And just to be around some of those cats, to be in the same room with Herbie Hancock and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. No, it's you know, I love that group. It's just, I mean, he was at, you mentioned eBay, so you know, I know you did that stuff with him, so it's kind of wanted to ask about that. Yeah,
actually, I think his sound influenced me a lot because I wound up getting a 6-string fretless bass, so that because of the sound, not that I wanted to challenge myself more and more, but because of the sound.
Yeah, he was a monster player. I mean, but around the time in the 80s, I wanted to ask you about one record that you did. It's called Wings, if you remember that one, and with
Franco Ambrosini. Yep.
There's like Michael Brecker on it and Kenny Kirkland.
Yeah.
And,
Buster Williams.
Yeah, Buster Williams, Daniel Umer, I think, on drums.
Yep.
How was that like for you to play with those cats, and like the story with Franco? How did that begin? Like, when did you meet him? In that group, actually.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's too much, right? So many things.
I don't remember. I think I remember talking to John Faddis about that before it happened. And I think maybe Franco was he wanted to have a French horn player, and he didn't know if I would be suitable. And I remember that Faddis talked to him and said, yeah, you should get Clark. So thank you, John. But yeah, really it was just a matter of having a quick rehearsal and going into the studio and just playing, you know.
Yeah, Michael on that record, I mean, he's burning. Like, I mean, everyone is just.
He's amazing. He's just amazing on everything he ever did.
Yeah. You did a lot with him, right? Probably, I mean, many records, or.
I don't know about records, but I would see him in the studio a lot, you know, on various things.
Yeah.
Some things that are more likely forgotten too.
Yeah. Were like the 80s for you, like this studio period also, that you did a lot of studio work? I mean, like many sessions per week. How was that like?
In the early 80s, yeah, there was a lot of studio work. And I could almost remember the day when it started to fade away. It wasn't.
When was that?
In 1984, the Yamaha DX7 became really popular. Oh yeah. And everyone had to get one, and everybody had to go around and say, yeah, I play the synthesizer now. So I would say the studio work began to go away at that time. And everybody was really upset about it because we weren't going to make as much money, but it was good for the creative spirit.
Yeah.
A lot of the studio work that we did didn't have anything to do at all. It was, you know, had more to do with selling dog food, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, but still, he did so much studio work also later. And you know, me being a guitarist, I wanted to ask you about your experience with Scofield, actually,
Yeah.
and that Quiet record, which I love. And I think you played on Grace Under Pressure also of his, you know. And how did you hook up with John? I mean, how did they find you, and your experience with him, if you can?
I knew John for a really long time because the time that I was in school at New England Conservatory, he was in school at Berkeley.
Oh yeah.
So did we play together? I think we must have, because we were, you know, just students starting out. And I remember seeing him and play in some of the clubs around Boston. So I had known him for a real long time. But when we did Quiet,
that's like 95. Yeah.
I think Carla had something to do with that. Did she produce that record?
Yeah, I
Well,
think
Steve
Swallow is
Carla-
on bass. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's on bass, and I remember Carla being there. So, yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like a natural thing that I would wind up being on that record. And you know, we did that live a couple years ago at Lincoln Center. It was just such a.
When he did the Electric Group with Gary Granger and Chambers, those guys, and oh yeah,
he did 2 separate concerts on the same day.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
you can do the guitar. You can play all day long on the guitar. You can't do that on the French horn.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. No, I can imagine. Yeah, but so nice that he redid that. I remember I watched that. It was such a beautiful one.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, John, so that you can leave for the rehearsal, I just wanted to ask you. I've read that, you know, among the people you played with, I think it includes everyone who's who in jazz almost. But one name popped up, and I wanted to ask you where and when did that happen? Ornette Coleman, like.
Oh yeah.
How did this come?
I don't know. I really don't know. I remember playing with him in a couple of different situations.
Oh.
But I don't really remember how, because I don't remember ever meeting him personally or, you know, establishing a connection. I think it was just he wanted a French horn player and somebody gave him my name and so and did the gigs.
Yeah, okay. But never a record came out, right? Or something like that. I mean, I have to check.
I don't think so. I remember playing live outdoors downtown somewhere. And I remember being in the studio. This was actually, I think it was kind of an unfortunate thing. And it never became a record because he had written all this music and they hired a bunch of people who were like regular studio players who weren't, I mean, although they may have been able to play jazz, they just didn't do that. And somebody convinced him that it would be a good idea to record this music with studio cats. And it was very awkward. It's like he was speaking a language and they weren't understanding it. And there was no one to interpret. And because I had been around him and that sort of style of music, I mean, really, okay, when I first moved to New York, I was doing a lot of whatever I could do, anything, whatever, you know, some contemporary classical stuff and some of what they call the loft jazz scene. And so I felt like when I wound up on that session, and I think that was probably in the late 70s or early 80s, I felt like I could understand what Ornette was trying for. But most of the people in the room didn't understand at all. And just, I hate to say this, but some of them seemed to be joking about it. And they were thinking like, oh, this cat doesn't know what he's doing. Well, yeah, he does know what he's doing, but you just don't get it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I think that kind of failed. I kind of didn't wind up being a record.
Yeah, interesting. You just mentioned the love scene.
Yeah.
Do you remember some of those sessions? Like who they were with?
Yeah. Arthur Blythe.
Really?
Stands out in my memory.
Oh man.
Oliver Lake. Julius Hemphill, who I wound up playing with a lot later on. I got to know those cats when they were just starting out, although I didn't get to be part of that whole scene, you know. I'll relate Julius, Arthur Blythe, but something that I did with Alan Brofman just got reissued. It's called Valley of Search, and we recorded that in 1975, and it just got reissued, and it's really a thrill. It's fun to hear it again and think back to those days. Nobody plays like that anymore. I don't think. I mean, I haven't heard it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I mean, we should.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'll do for my next project.
Revisiting the loft, whatever, something.
Yeah.
Would be nice. Just to get loose and play. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss that too, actually. When I listened to, you know, some 70s stuff and the tunes were 19 minutes long and people just played. That was just like,
Ooh. Yeah. Well, that's what we would do. I remember where Alan lived on Canal Street, we would have these sessions that would go for 6 hours. And if you had to go to the bathroom, you'd stop playing and get a drink of water, and then you start playing again. So
beautiful.
It's really good for your playing. It's good for your ears. It's good. Might be hard to listen to sometimes.
Yeah, but still, I mean, yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, that you were part of it. Cool. Great, John. I will let you go so that you can go. Thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate some of the stories you shared, and well, I hope to see a new bandleader record of you soon.
Okay. Well, maybe you inspired me now. We'll see what happens.
Come on.
Thank you.
You have to do it. Thanks, John. Stay strong and have a nice gig.
Thank